I'm going to read a series of short poems about my grandmother's life. And Joe, I'm going to let you pass around a picture just so you'll have an image as I read these poems. I called this project Ballads from Biltmore because, first of all, ballads tell a story, often based on oral tradition, and because Biltmore House and estate played a significant role in my family's history. My grandmother, Myrtle Spain Roberts, was born in 1895, the year that Edith and George Vanderbilt moved into the Biltmore House. And she spent her early years on a farm that is today part of the Biltmore Forest Golf Course. These short ballads draw primarily on family stories. Some of the pieces quote my grandmother and conversations I had with her in the 1970s that I taped so that I could hear her voice. Some are supplemented by historical research, and others are my imaginative reconstructions of the events of her life. But I hope that all of them are true in the sense that they preserve her voice and her spirit. Ballads from Biltmore. Beginnings. Reckoned my whole life been tied up with them Vanderbilts. That big house opening the same year I saw light, my first memory, the sight of it. Before I was born, my Papa Spain hired out his horses to level the land and build the roads. When the estate opened, he hitched his team to the buggy, fetched outlanders from the depot, hauled them over to view it. My papa had the prettiest farm, fields of corn, wheat, and rye, an orchard with all kinds of apples and Scuppernong grapes for jam. He and a neighbor, Charles Collins, held out near 20 years, the last ones left on that land, one white family and one colored. Come 1907, Collins took the cash, headed north. Papa swapped his holdings acre for acre for land on Hendersonville Pike. The Spain family farm swallowed whole for Mr. Vanderbilt's pleasure. So a little background to the second piece. The Spain family farm was in a place called Browntown. It was a community obliterated by the Vanderbilt estate. And it has disappeared completely from the historical record. I've been in touch with the archivist at the Biltmore House, no record of Browntown. But there is a road today called Browntown Road that runs through Biltmore Forest. Adjacent to Browntown was an African-American community called Shiloh, which Mr. Vanderbilt moved lock, stock, and barrel, including digging up the bodies from the graveyard and moving the church to an area on Hendersonville Pike near where the Spain family eventually had moved. Today, that community is called New Shiloh and is still there. And so this is the background to this next little piece. Browntown childhood. Seems like I don't recall no time when I wasn't working, just a mite. I toted water to the fields, carried dinner to the cradlers during harvest time. I tended the littlest baby, my sister Alice, pushed her buggy down to Brown Branch, met up with my friend Judy, lugging her brother Virgil on her back. We nestled them babies in the carriage, colored and white together, combed the fields for sweet potatoes, roasted them over a fire of sticks and twigs, and ate our dinner. In the 1900 census, I found a record of Judith Jackson, born in 1897, who lived very close to the Spain farm, and who I think is the childhood friend that my grandmother told the story about. About 1910, grandmother began working as a maid at the Biltmore House. Housekeeping. I hated all that dark furniture with squiggles and swirls to dust and to polish every day. I was no more than 15 when I started working there, sleeping with the unmarried girls way up on top of the fourth floor, white uniforms mornings, lavender afternoons. The head housekeeper, Mrs. King, always wore black, a big ring of keys jingling on her belt. I heard tell them Vanderbilts brought her over from England. Reckon they thought women folks in this country don't know nothing about housekeeping. The old man. Daytime, old man Vanderbilt wore them riding breeches, aiming to hunt for critters roaming the deer park or living fence to Cottonmouth Pisgah stop to make the killing easy. I never saw him in his night clothes, though it was me had to empty that stinking bedpan. A chamber pot, they called it, white china painted with pink flowers. But what it contained were a bit sweeter than any poor man's leavings. Once the confounded thing slipped right out of my hands, cracked, the nastiness seeping out. I hightailed it out of there. When Mrs. King raised a ruckus about the old man's mess, I kept my mouth shut, fretting for days they was going to find out who done it. George Vanderbilt collected 23,000 volumes of books that now you can see in the library at the Biltmore Estate. And many of those books were sent to the world's most prestigious bookbinders. He had them rebound in Moroccan leather with gold decorations and gold writing. Books. I like dusting the library about better than any place in that Biltmore house. Rows and rows of books, green, burgundy, blue, gold writing on the covers, crates arriving every few weeks. I've seen Mr. Vanderbilt lifting books from the boxes, sorting them by colors, sticking them up on the shelves. I don't put much stock in folks spending all that money on books just for show. If you visit the Biltmore house today, there's a hill above the house, and on that hill is a gazebo with a statue of the goddess Diana and a hunting dog at her feet. This one is Cordy. I got Sundays off. Saturday evening, I'd meet John Roberts where the statue of a lady stares down on the big house. Folks claimed she was a goddess who could outrun any man. Mrs. Vanderbilt took a shine to me, claimed I was just the girl to travel with her across the ocean and through Europe. John was none too pleased to hear it. He was considerable older than me and was courting seriously. Go if you want, he said, but I won't be here waiting when you get back. I carried the steamer trunk to the store where I bought it, traded it for a cedar oak chest. Never did get to see the ocean. In 1917, Myrtle Spain married John Roberts. His family property was about 3 miles from the Biltmore estate, in an area much more isolated than where she had grown up. Cold. When John and I married, we moved in with his folks. I miss my 7 sisters whispering and giggling at Biltmore Village where folks was always coming and going. That Roberts house was terrible quiet. The only neighbors colored folks. If Paul Roberts saw a drummer pass down the road, he'd say, "Where in tarnation did he come from?" Granny Roberts was an uppish sort, liable to get her nose out of joint, setting her lips straight as a ruler, saying nary a word for days at a time. That winter was awful cold. The flu carried off plenty of folks. I was mighty glad when spring done come round. Making do. John bought the old home place, a right pretty piece of land where his kin first settled. Those days, nothing went to waste. We gathered stone for our chimney from the tumble-down cabin, rummaged in Biltmore for windows from houses flooded in 1916, yanked lumber from abandoned buildings, spent evenings jerking nails from old boards. It made a hard job fitting together those bits and pieces, no two of them alike, seams running ever which way. Inside, I stuffed the cracks with rags, mixed flour and paraffin shavings, plastered newspaper over that rough pine. Blackberry winter, we moved into our house just days before the two of us became through. The house that she is describing was originally 3 rooms. You'll see it in the picture. Later, 4 bedrooms were built above, one for each of the 4 children that came. The house was bricked, and a front porch was built across the front, where grandmother always raised pink geraniums, as you'll see in that picture, in the picture of the brick house. Birthing. When I got down with pains, John run to his mother. Ain't nothing to it, Granny said. I'll be there directly after I finish my chores. He set out for Aunt Mag Wilson, who birthed babies for the coloreds. When Granny come, they had laid us out, that little blue thing beside me. Didn't know which of us to try to save or leave for dead. We both come round in good time. Nancy, we named her, slow to walk because too slow to get born. Next time, John drove the buggy to Arden for Doc Baker. He put a rag over my nose and had me breathe chloroform. Almost never woke up. I'd sooner have had Meg Wilson. Some days I've been so tired, I just wish they had let me go on. The background for the next piece is the Comstock Law, which was enacted in 1873 and made it illegal to distribute birth control information or devices through the mail. It was partially repealed in the 1930s, but it's been revived in court cases recently after the Dobbs decision overturning the right to abortion, and is now being cited in cases that are in progress trying to restrict abortion material. In a court case right now that is in progress where a doctor from New York is being prosecuted in Louisiana for supplying a patient with abortion medication. So it is still a live issue. This is called Know-How, 1923. My second child, Dorothy, worried the life out of me, all the time crying and coughing when it was cold. Nancy, not old enough for school, my third girl, Sarah, just toddling, me already big with another one. I carried Dorothy to Biltmore to see a doctor who had come to the mountains to heal his lungs. He scolded me. Mrs. Roberts, nothing wrong with this young'un, growing like a weed, color in her cheeks. It's you that concerns me. Took me aside, private like. Told me things I never knowed. No such talk in those days. Doctors hauled off to jail for giving out that kind of know-how. Born a few months later, John Jr. weighed 11 pounds. Don't think I would have made it had I born another one. Married life. 200 steps up the back stairs, my cozy Biltmore house bedroom had a fireplace to keep me warm in winter, a window open to summer breezes, an oak chest where my uniforms laundered fresh each week, and a bathroom with hot water to bathe and wash my hair. When I worked in the pastry kitchen, I could smell meat roasting on the spits, knowing some would be left for my supper in the servants' dining room. In the house that John built, we all slept in one room, traipsed in the cold to the privy, carried water from the spring. I washed our clothes outside, boiled dirty diapers in a cast iron pot over an open fire. I sewed dresses from feed sacks, pieced quilts from the scraps, milked the cow, churned the butter, baked biscuits and fried corn pone in a skillet on the black wood stove. I told my girls when they wanted to marry, burn your bottom and you sit on it. Power. From our yard, you could see Busby Mountain at its top over 3,000 feet, at bottom of the lake where the creek was dammed to make a reservoir. John run the pumps that pushed the water all the way to the Vanderbilts. Enough water to fill the swimming pool and 3 goldfish ponds, enough for the gardens they were planting, enough for all that cooking and bathing, while every day I was toting buckets up the hill from the spring. When Mrs. Vanderbilt laid a power line from the reservoir to the estate, John got her to run a wire to our house. We was the first in the area to get electricity. Every 2 weeks, John drove the buggy to Biltmore to pick up his pay, $9.80, minus $1 took out. Looks like those Vanderbilts could have afforded that little bit of power. John working hard for them like he'd done so many years. Colors. Every so often, a big black Packard rolled down our dirt road parked by the barn. John's boss man, Mr. Chauncey Beadle, hopped out the bag, took off through the woods to inspect the pumps. His driver was a colored fella named Sylvester Owens. Folks called them two azalea hunters because they roamed the mountains searching out flame-colored azaleas, yellow, orange, and coral, and rhododendron, red, pink, purple, and laurel white. Could you believe it? When Mr. Chauncey Beadle died, Sylvester Owens took his place, a colored head gardener on the Biltmore estate. Chauncey Beadle was a Canadian botanist who was hired in 1889 by Frederick Olmsted, who designed the gardens at the Biltmore estate. He did bring azaleas and rhododendrons from all over the mountains to plant on the estate. In 1940, I discovered in my research that there was a celebration on the estate with a plaque erected to honor Mr. Beadle, with the Vanderbilts and with people who worked at the estate attending. And there was an article in the Asheville Citizen with a picture of this event. And now I wonder if it's possible that my grandparents were there. But I never, these are the things that you don't ask, and now it's too late to know. The next piece is called Golfing Like a Vanderbilt. Years ago, when I worked at the Biltmore House, I would hear the tutor trying to teach Miss Cornelia her lessons. It was a hard job he had. She didn't take to book learning. Miss Cornelia was like her daddy, always shooting, fishing, riding horses. When she growed up, she got it into her head to build a golf course near where my papa's famous farm had been. I seen a picture of her in the newspaper swinging the first ball, dressed like a flapper, with one of them's hats like a bell down over her eyes. Ben West, a colored man, was most like a brother to John. Ben got himself a job on Miss Cornelia's golf course, trailing rich white folks and carrying their gear. One day he turned up at our place, toting a bunch of golf clubs, said they was going to throw these out, but I kept them for your young'uns. He and John leveled the pasture, dug holes to make a golf green. Those girls of mine would hit the balls, pretending to be Miss Cornelia, skirts flying to the sky. Christmas, 1928. A fancy card come in the mail from Mrs. Vanderbilt, inviting workers and their children to a Christmas party. John harumphed. Well, I had a hankering to go. Inside the banquet hall, racks of deers ringed the walls, and a Christmas tree nearly touched the ceiling. Up high on the balcony stood Miss Cornelia with her 2 little boys, George and Bill, laughing while they tossed balloons down to the folks way down below. From the fireplace so big a man could stand in it came Santa Claus with a sack of presents for the children. When Dorothy got a pack of cards, John hurled them in the trash and said, "No godless Vanderbilt's going to lure my girls with gambling. This is the last time they go to a Biltmore house party." Education. I only got 6 years of schooling, started working for neighboring families when I was 12, taking care of youngins. By 15, I was maid to old man Vanderbilt. My girls were smart. I told them, get married and you'll spend your life scrubbing floors and changing diapers. Go to school, there's other things you can do. We saved what we could, banked it and built more. But come 1930, all was gone. When Nancy needed tuition money for the Asheville Normal, John headed down to the damp cellar, grabbed a quart jar hid on the shelf behind canned tomatoes, pulled out a clump of bills stuffed fast with mold. We soaked them bills, pried them apart, and ironed them dry. Nancy crying all the while, afraid the college would refuse her smelly dollars and judge her to be a poor girl who the missionaries aimed to save. The background of this, the Asheville Normal and Collegiate Institute was established in 1892 as a Presbyterian mission to the poor girls of the mountains. In the 1940s, it merged with a Presbyterian institution, a farm school in Swannanoa, and it became Warren Wilson College. All three of my grandmother's daughters graduated from the Asheville Normal. Two of them became teachers. The only one of her four children who did not graduate from college was the son. Foolishness. John left me a widow half my life. My youngest three up and married, busy raising their own broods. Nancy never was interested in leaving home, said she had no time for mooning around boys. She seemed contented enough teaching school at Oakley. Every morning she swept out the house quick like, but I did all the cooking and washing. I ain't complaining. I was glad for the company. One day, some old man whose wife had died turned up at our door, asking if Miss Nancy needed a ride to choir practice. It got to be a regular habit, her riding with him, them sitting in that car of his afterwards. I knowed courting when I seed it. My friend Edith told me, Myrtle, old rats like cheese too. Mention his name, and Nancy would turn red like some schoolgirl, not a grown woman, near 40. Wouldn't you know it? Next thing, she was fixing for a wedding. If you want to spend your life cooking and washing and cleaning for some old man, you just go on, I told her. She knew I was right foot out and thought it was all foolishness. Drawers. When we was growing up, you had to be so modest and nice, couldn't show your knees or elbows. When you washed your clothes, you didn't pin your underthings up on the line because if any boys was around, it would be the awfulest thing to let them know you wore drawers. I sewed my own dresses from the same pattern, soft cotton, loose and comfortable, nothing to bind me, no collars or belts, short sleeves so my arms could chop weeds, skirt wide enough to sit on the milking stool, legs spread, feet solid on the barn floor. When Nancy was fixing to marry, Dorothy bought me a dress from Bon Marché, some stiff cloth that rustled when I moved. Then she told me I needed new drawers, that my old cotton panties bunched under that dress. Directly, she came back with a brassiere and a girdle, the first of either I ever wore. I never been so uneasy in my clothes as I was at that darn fool wedding. The next piece is called The Swan, which is the name of a 1956 movie. The Swan. John bought two geldings, bays with white blazes. We named them George and Bill after Miss Cornelia's sons. They worked the farm, but looked right nice pulling our buggy. After John died, they were put out to pasture, old like me, leading quiet lives, until one day a man come round seeking a matched pair. I didn't care about movies, but my daughter claimed I ought to go. There on that big screen, I seen Grace Kelly pretending to be a princess, living in a castle. It weren't nothing but that Biltmore house where I cooked and cleaned. But there was George and Bill looking proud, pulling a carriage like they were carrying Cinderella to the ball. Religion. My Papa Spain was a bad one for religion. Door of the church wasn't open unless he was there. The preacher rode the circuit, stayed at our house whenever he come through. Me and Papa would get the spirit, be shouting all night long. My spirit is more quiet. My religion is more quiet like. I sit on my porch, look at Busby, read. I lift up mine eyes until the hills. Busby was named for a trapper who lived up top the mountain. Said that was the closest to heaven a body was likely to get. These days, I go to church on Sundays like everybody else around here. Most times I work in the nursery, rocking and singing to the babies, that milk-fed sweetness still on them. Let the little children come unto me. More religion in that, I reckon, than any preacher's sermon. Brass. I know Lawrence Wilson all his life. His grandma Mag helped birth my babies. Now he's a fine colored man, grows all kinds of flowers, keeps his place right pretty. I was getting too old to push the lawnmower up and down these hills. Lawrence started coming around doing for me. After he mowed, we'd sit on the porch, drink Coca-Colas, and visit. Lawrence, I said, I got enough cash to pay half for one of them gas mowers. If you pay me the rest, you can keep it, use it whenever it suits you. Lawrence, I told him, there's one last thing I want you to do. When they put my body in a box, you be the one that bears me. After the funeral flowers die, be sure you mow the grass that grows over me. I had thought that Lawrence Wilson did work for my grandmother for a little bit of money. After she died, I found out that he was one of the most prominent African Americans in the New Shiloh community. He donated land for a community center. He founded a golf course for African American golfers. He worked at the VA hospital. Whatever the bond was between Lawrence Wilson and my grandmother, it was not just over mowing the grass. And when she died, her 5 grandsons and Lawrence Wilson were the pallbearers. This last piece is almost verbatim from the last conversation I had with my grandmother before her death in December 1986. Hospital. This little feisty preacher come into my room, talking. Thank you just the same, I said. You just mosey right along. I got all the salvation I need. Who would want that scrawny thing? John was the only man I ever had. I sure don't need another one nattering at me. So I would appreciate questions, comments, feedback.
I have no experience of anything that you're describing. I see it and feel it.
Yes.
It's captured such a fabulous way.
Well, I hope to capture her voice. It's really important to me to remember that voice, not to forget her voice.
I love it.
Child with your parent.
My mother is Dorothy, the second girl. And was the second girl. Nancy was the first girl. Dorothy, Sarah, and then John Jr.
What happened to John Jr.? Who didn't go to college?
John Jr. started college, dropped out, went to the war, was a bombardier in Europe. Came home shell-shocked. Recovered, I guess. Got a job with, I guess it was Bell Telephone. Worked as a lineman for Bell Telephone for years. Had 3 sons of his own. My grandmother basically raised his 3 sons. I didn't go into all the stories. But, yeah.
Diane, did she live with you or were you just nearby? I might have missed what you said.
I was the first no, I didn't say anything about this. I was the first grandchild, so I think I was particularly close to her. The first 3 years of my life, we did not live in Asheville. but I was left with her for some significant periods of time. And then we moved to Asheville, in a house that actually was only about 2 to 3 miles as the crow flies from the Biltmore estate, although driving it was much further. So then I saw her at least once a week and stayed with her sometimes for days at a time. And Laura,
How would you describe your relationship?
oh, I think I had a very close relationship with my grandmother.
Was she interested in you as a person? You said you talked with her quite a bit.
Our worlds were so different as I grew up. I'm not sure that she actually understood too much of my life, but she was the kind of person who was totally accepting, totally loving, totally accepting. She didn't need to understand that much about my life. When my first child was born, we were living out in Chatham County, and she loved babies as much as she, I wouldn't say disliked marriage, as much as she had serious doubts about the institution of marriage. She loved children and she loved babies. And so she got my Aunt Nancy to drive her from Asheville to come see the baby. She came in, she sat for about 2 hours holding the baby, and then she said she had to go home. Because if she popped off, her neighbor might come in her house and it wasn't clean enough for her to see. So she stayed a couple of hours, held the baby, and went home. And she loved the children, loved the great grandchildren. Yeah, the sweet milk. Yeah.
What did you call her?
Always grandmother.
Grandmother?
She would not be called grandma or granny. Absolutely not. It had to be grandmother.
Mhm.
Yes.
So, and Diane, did you do a lot of, not just family history, but, history, reading about that part of the country, or the state, as we guess it is, when you, were writing these up?
Yes, because questions would come up. I learned more about the African American community in particular, Shiloh and New Shiloh. I so if there was anybody here who could recommend a dissertation topic, I think looking at the workers of the Biltmore estate would be a wonderful American history dissertation. As far as I know, nobody, there's people write about it and they write about it like it's Princess Grace in the carriage, the Biltmore estate. They don't write about the workers and the history of the workers. There were African American workers. There were in the early days Italian workers who came from Italy to do the stonework. So it was a more cosmopolitan community than you might imagine in the mountains, particularly when it was being built and in the years afterwards. But there's a lot of history there that is yet to be uncovered. Yes, I have a no. I for this reading, I picked out the ones that have more to do with the Biltmore estate. There are others on other topics. Yes, I did. During COVID, I was telling some folks that, when you're isolated during COVID, I started this sort of heritage project, and I did some in my mother's voice, I did some in my grandmother's voice, I did some others about my father's experience. So I've been playing with writing things to preserve this family stories and family history, a way to do that.
Yeah, that's